Welcome to Euroz Hartleys Finding the Front, where we get to know the people who front some of Western Australia's leading companies, providing you with real insights into the way they think and approach things, both in business and in life. So get the volume adjusted in your car or your headphones sorted and settle in for a great story. Here's your host, Tim Banfield.
Hey everyone, and thanks for joining us for another cracking episode of Euroz Hartleys Finding the Front. For those of you who are new to the show and are not familiar with Euroz Hartleys is a proudly Western Australian, ASX-listed, diversified financial services company that specialises in the provision of private wealth management, stockbroking, corporate finance, institutional sales and targeted research services. If you'd like to learn more about Euroz Hartleys and the services we can provide, please don't hesitate to contact us or visit our website at www.eurozhartleys.com. Well, what a remarkable and moving story we have for this episode of the show. Our special guest is Kyle De Souza, leading Resources Analyst for Euroz Hartleys. Kyle and his family are originally from Bombay in India. When Kyle was age 7, they received the opportunity to move to Perth and went about settling into life in Western Australia. With a close family upbringing, Kyle chose mining after leaving school and went to Kalgoorlie to attend the WA School of Mines, where he graduated with honours. We discussed the impact that this institution and his time in Kalgoorlie has had on his life. He went on to build a career as a mining engineer, spending some 15 years in hard rock mining across Western Australia in both technical and managerial positions. He was invited to join the Council of the WA School of Mines Alumni in 2012. Kyle's career progressed to an established and valued position within mining success story Saracen Minerals, and he outlines the serious experience of learning and working within this organisation. However, he then decided to make an important but difficult decision to pivot his career in a new direction towards the financial markets and take up an unexpected, sought-after opportunity to become a Resources Equity Analyst with the leading Equities Research team within Euroz Hartleys. An opportunity that he has embraced ever since and is quite reflective of this major change in profession. Kyle was appointed to the highly regarded role of President of the WA School of Mines Alumni in 2022 for a 3-year term, following in the footsteps of the likes of past presidents Tony James, Bill Beeman, Raleigh Finlayson and Christian Price. This is an absolute ripper with so many insights and takeaways. So without further ado, it gives me a massive pleasure to introduce to Euroz Hartleys Finding the Front, experienced miner and leading Resources Analyst for Euroz Hartleys and all-round humble yet outstanding guy, Kyle De Souza. Welcome, Kyle, to Euroz Hartleys Finding the Front. It's just so awesome to have you on the show. It really is. And I know we've been trying to find a time for you to join us, and here we are. So thanks a lot for joining us.
It's a bit of an honour to be here, really. This podcast is incredible. The stories that you hear from some of the most respected people in WA. It's a real honour to be here, and kind of scary at the same time.
Well, sit back and relax, mate. You're in good hands. So look, Kyle, it's an outstanding story and one that I'm really looking forward to talking about. And you're a mining engineer with 15 years experience in hard rock mining across Western Australia. You also have technical and managerial experience. You made the shift across to the financial sector as well, which is interesting in itself. And you've utilised your past experience, but also your current experience in becoming a leading resources analyst at Euroz Hartleys. But your journey to get here hasn't always been straightforward. The homework that I've done really has been quite enlightening in that I know your early childhood years were spent in Bombay in India, and you arrived in Australia at the age of around 7. Should we start there and and how was it growing up?
So we came here in 95. So I was 7, and growing up in India, one of the most incredible times in my life. I look back fondly on those memories because it was such an adventure, as you do as a kid. But then coming to Australia, I think was different because for 3 years we were trying to come to Australia. It wasn't just a very straightforward process.
Is that right?
It was a ballot system. So you applied to go to different countries, and luck of the draw. If you got picked out, you're going. And so the family got split. Some ended up in Canada, some ended up in London, some ended up in Perth. But at the time, I guess Perth had this policy around migration, which allowed for family members to then effectively bring other family members to come across.
Yes.
And so we effectively hitched onto that and managed to find our way here. And do you know what? Like that time in my life, I just think back at how incredibly challenging that was for my parents, yet we were sheltered from it.
Yes.
Because Australia was a different time back then too.
Tell me a little bit about Bombay. What were your parents doing at the time?
So Dad was a graphic designer.
Yes.
Very high-profile graphic designer. And Mum was an air hostess.
Is that right?
Yeah, so my love of travel comes from Mum, travelling everywhere. And then, the creative side and the mischief comes from Dad, I think.
And in your family, who was it, yourself?
Yep. No, I've got one sister. She's in Florida now. She's living there. She married a bloke that she became an air hostess as well.
Right.
Ended up marrying Scotty, a pilot at Emirates, and they both moved to Florida. So he's from the US. So she's living there, and then myself. So that's my only sibling, and just the one daughter with my beautiful wife Jamie Lee.
Why did your parents want to move? In essence, what was the driver behind it?
I think when you look at how good our life is here in Australia, we all take it for granted. And, when people used to ask me, why are you going to Australia? When I was a kid, I'd say for a better life. That's it, for a better life. What does a better life mean? And because we live the best life here, it's a very hard question to ask an Australian what a better life is. You go anywhere else in the world and they say, what does a better life look like? It looks like us. It looks like what we're living now.
Yeah.
But in India, it's extremely challenging. You've got this population, this huge population, and everyone's going after the same jobs. So it's very academic. It's nearly impossible to get anything done in India. And, when you aspire for something better for your children, I think, and the opportunity was there, my mum and dad took it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they moved across. You came to Perth. Whereabouts did you settle? How did that process unfold?
You can imagine how tough life was as an immigrant. Rented in a place in Willerton.
Yes.
And I was going to Arana Catholic Primary. And eventually a house came up in Murdoch, and house prices weren't as dear as they are then. And Mum and Dad bought a place in Murdoch, and it's where Mum is now.
And that's where it all started?
Yeah, and that's where it's all started, yeah.
Now, schooling. You mentioned Arana Primary. Did you enjoy school when you arrived? Did you embrace it?
I loved school. Arana was a very multicultural school.
Right.
And I remember the very first day at school, it was actually an excursion. And still today, to one of my best mates, Michael Nazareth, he came up to me and I was just sort of sitting there by myself, and he said, "Do you want to be my friend?" That was it. Yeah. And we've just been best mates ever since. And, that kids are kids. They just took me under their wing. And to this date, that group of people that I met that day are still my closest friends.
Oh, fantastic. You went on to senior school?
Yep.
Tell me, how did academics go with you? Did you find it easy at school?
No, I didn't. I'm not naturally academic. It takes a lot of work for me to retain information. I just really got to apply myself. But I was also very athletic, I would say. So it was like I wanted to be academic, but I had to really work hard for that. But the sport sort of came naturally to me.
Yes.
So it was kind of a strange balance. And so I found myself hanging out with, some real elite athletes, but then also trying to apply myself and do the Indian thing, which is aim to become a doctor or a lawyer or some sort of fancy job like that.
So Kyle, once you got settled, just give us a bit of an insight into what it was like being an Indian immigrant in 1995 when you arrived. Yeah.
Yep. I was very lucky, obviously, I sort of mentioned before, going to Arana, which was an amazing community. But at the same time, so 1996 is where Pauline Hanson comes out with the One Nation campaign And the line that stuck with that campaign was "Go back to where you came from." And I think back to those days where it's like getting on the bus to go back home and some kids telling me to go back to where I came from, right? Who's, 13, 12, 13. And one particular moment sticks out because they were trying to push me off the bus. And this guy, Con Regan, I remember him so clearly. He was actually younger than me. He stood up and told them to go away.
Yes.
And I don't know what Con's doing now, but just moments like that. And then it was also, we say we don't live in a racist country, but really, like, there is undertones. Then it was 9/11, where, God forbid if I had a beard, right? So I was shaving, always the one picked out in the line to go under the bomb scan.
Yes.
People are like, oh, you're always dressed really well. It's like, yeah, because I don't want people to be intimidated by me.
Yes.
You walk on a train, there's a bunch of old ladies on there and they're all grabbing their handbag. It's when you see that happen all the time, or you get searched at a security checkpoint, or the button that you press when you're leaving the checkout and it says, do you want a receipt? Like, of course I want that receipt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I know that when I walk through that gate, someone's going to ask me. Jamie Lee will walk straight through, right? They'll ask me, do you have a receipt?
Yeah.
So that there are these undertones of that period which is still ingrained, but it's the minority. But yeah, that early, going back to the early stage of being a migrant in Australia, like, amazing. Outside of that stuff which was happening and you were seeing on the TV, broadly speaking, there were big cultural shifts in Australia back then.
Yes.
The immigration policies were changing and were becoming more open. But you got to remember, the stolen generation was up until the 80s that was going on. So there was still legacy of what I would call the old Australia, but then the new Australia. And I'm glad I'm part of the new Australia.
You obviously, at that stage of your life, you had a very close relationship with your parents.
Yep.
And they were very influential in the way you've been brought up and your outlook and your positive outlook. Tell us a little bit about how they influenced the next stage then and where you decided, because from there you graduated from school and you went and did a Bachelor of Engineering, Mining Engineering.
Yep.
At the WA School of Mines.
Yep. And
then you also did a Bachelor of Commerce, Bachelor of Business Administration and Management at Curtin General.
Yep.
That's 2 degrees and you got honours for both. But how did you end up in that
line of work?
That theme,
yeah.
Yes.
So in high school, I was actually leaning back in my chair, probably a religion class, as you do, and it doze off. And the guy sitting behind me was Sheldon McIntyre. So Sheldon is the son of Colin McIntyre, the National Mine Management, who sold that to become McMahon's. So, people used to call Cole the godfather of mining, and I didn't know who he was, but Sheldon was like, speak to my dad because you don't have any idea what you want to do and maybe consider doing mining engineering. And even to this date, you speak to most kids in WA, they won't actually know what a mining engineer is. They'll think it's some crappy degree that isn't actually legitimate because no one's told about this degree. So I went and had a meeting with Colin. I rocked up in my full suit. He opens the door and he's standing there in his pluggers and his short shorts. He gives me this great big hug and says, come on up into my office and I'll teach you all about mining. And that was my first introduction to a mining personality. That was my first introduction to mining. And I was just embraced by this man that I'd never met before. And he took me under his wing. He gave me my first job. He said, the day you turn 18, I'm going to send you to work on a mine site and you're going to go work underground. And he did. 2 days after I turned 18, he sent me to the Ravate nickel mine where Steve Norregard was the MD of Tectonic, and he threw me on the air leg for 2 months in Ravensthorpe. And I fell in love with it straight away.
But before you had that conversation, did you have an ambition? I remember talking to you offline about it. Did you have an ambition to sort of get into the restaurant business or something like that?
Yep. And I think the one of the big decisions about, for me, it was growing up without a lot of money. It's like, how do I look after my parents? How do I get a job which always gives me money to look after my family?
Yes.
And 2, we've always been hospitality people, as in like you always want to share food. The way we show love culturally is with food. And so starting a restaurant, was like this dream, like, oh, we could start a restaurant. Back then I didn't know that restaurants don't make much money, But it was just real passion play of like, okay, I'll go into mining and then I'll be able to start this beautiful restaurant with my dad. And so that was the real driving factor for getting into mining. I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do, and I just I landed in the right spot, really.
And so having that conversation with Colin enabled you to then end up with your first opportunity in vacation work during your degree. And then you end up with Steve Norregard.
Then I ended up with the Stig. I call him the Stig, Steve Norregard.
Shout out to Steve.
Yep. And he the first job Stig gave me was washing his car.
Oh, well, I mean, you went on and did quite a bit of vacation work. You know, you had time there. Service crew, air-leg miner at Tectonic, Nipper, charge up at Barminco.
That was with Billy, when Billy was the ops manager for Barminco.
Is that right?
Yep. So I was at Paulson's when it was Intrepid. And then, Bill was obviously at Barminco back then. And that was the asset that he went and bought to start Northern Star.
So you started with Bill on your second leg of vacation work. Third leg of vacation work. Well, shout out to Billy Beeman. And these names keep coming back.
They will. Yes, Stewie Tonks was there as well.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So now running Northern Star.
And then we went on to, is there anyone else you want to name in there that was there at the same time?
No, I'm not too sure. I think Stralo came after. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. And then you went on to Golden Grove and again underground services. And that sort of rounded out the vacation work. Now, I want to just touch on that. You know, you spent obviously a lot of time at the School of Mines and doing university, but these were integral roles to fund your way through is the way I understand it.
It is. So the WA School of Mines is quite unique because it's in Kalgoorlie.
Yep.
And what you find with kids getting into mining, they're generally doing it in the first instance for one reason. They've never had wealth, and this is the easiest pathway to it. So they're choosing this career path not because they know what it involves necessarily. They're doing it because it solves a problem in their life, which for most of us was money.
Yes.
And so when you're studying in Kalgoorlie with that as the reason for it, it means you don't necessarily have the financial support of family, right? So you have to work every single break. I was lucky, like mum and dad had savings, so I was okay, but you had to work to live a better life in Kalgoorlie. I think that's a really key point for what makes the School of Mines different, is that everyone comes out of that school with practical skills working underground. Otherwise, you don't make it through.
And it also gave you a geographic exposure. I mean, you went to Meekatharra, Ravensthorpe, the Pilbara, Gascoyne.
Yeah, exactly.
You had a thorough understanding over a 4-year period.
Exactly right. And not just that, the network, the cultures, the different systems, different commodities that you learn doing that. Well, what an opportunity to do it during your VAC work.
Absolutely. It set you up for your first job, which was at La Mancha. And that was in the role of a graduate engineer, drill and blast engineer, and ventilation engineer. So you covered 2 areas as a graduate. Tell us a little bit about the start and getting your first gig.
So the first gig, it was actually James Crozer, who's running Delta Lithium now, and one of the most incredible people you ever meet, him and his wife Amanda. And he was doing our graduation speech, or a graduation speech. And at that graduation speech, I think he spoke to mum and dad and was like, he's going to work for me, Kyle's going to work for me. And lo and behold, I ended up working for him at La Mancha. And I started at La Mancha, and what an eye-opener. You leave university. It's a sad moment when you graduate from the School of Mines because it's the last time you'll see your mates because everyone goes fly in, fly out. And you just formed this incredible relationship with a bunch of people. You've left home at 18. You've gone to live in Kalgoorlie, and suddenly, 4 years later, it's done.
Just pause there, Kyle. Just give us a bit of an example on that group, that cohort of people that you went through.
Yeah, I mean,
because they've all gone on to be such successes.
They've all, most of them are GMs now across mine sites across WA. For those that didn't decide to go down that route, they're the tech services managers for companies. It's just such an incredible group of people. But I think beyond the group of people, it's the type of people that come out of that school.
Yes.
Well-rounded, salt of the earth. It's a big filter. And so you go through this experience of living alone and being independent with this group of people that are completely isolated. They become your family. And I don't use that word lightly. Those people that you stay with at the School of Mines, and that's why the School of Mines alumni are so strong, because not only do you graduate with that cohort, but along the way, past graduates are always coming back to the school, diggers and dealers, presentations at the university, job opportunities. You're unemployed, we'll give you a job straight away first. It's just this incredible network, and it all starts with a very unique ecosystem of being in Kalgoorlie.
And then you obviously move on from that, but the relationships go on forever.
We're always talking, we're always having a laugh, we're catching up for a beer. It's just amazing. And when you think about how isolating it can be to be not just a mining engineer, but once you become a mine manager and then a general manager, it is very isolating, not just from being the top of the triangle, but because you are actually physically isolated and you are then responsible for the lives of so many people on your mine site. That network becomes incredibly important.
Yes. So you're into the swing of it. You're at La Mancha, and that was a 2-year role.
That was a 2-year role, yep.
And you then started to look at opportunities to broaden you as a person, I would say is a good way of describing it.
Yeah.
And you went into looking at opportunities to have a philanthropic role. Tell us a little bit about that. How old were you at this stage?
I'd have been 20, 21, 22. So I was working full-time underground. So I did my first year underground with La Mancha. And whilst I was working underground, I was finishing my commerce degree. So I'd actually drive back to Perth every single week. I'd leave my night shift at 2 a.m. to make my 8 o'clock class in Perth and then sleep in the back of the ute. And I guess that sort of little portion of that, my life then was like, okay, I'm really enjoying this, but it's really hard. Spend 20 years studying, right from the time you're pre-kindy, you're learning. And La Mancha was this amazing company to work for, Graham Crew. I was actually speaking to Crew last night, one of the best managers you'll ever meet, the loveliest people. And Liz Jones, who's now the GM for Emilius, she was the underground manager. And I just thought, I've been in Kalgoorlie for 5 years. I'm really missing home. Kalgoorlie can be a pretty transient town. All my mates had effectively left by that stage from Kalgoorlie, and I had to make a change. And that was really the reason for thinking a bit differently about what my life looked like. And it can be coming to that much money as well, going from living effectively paycheck to paycheck as a student to then coming into $80,000, $90,000 a year salary back then. It's a lot of money. And it just felt weird. And I just needed a circuit breaker.
Well, you went on and took a role with the Rock team.
So James Crozer. So James left La Mancha and he went and started this consulting contracting business called Rock Team.
Right.
Dennis Grubich and Peter George. And I went and tried my hand at that for a little bit.
It was an interesting period of time for you as well, because you thought, how am I going to give back a little bit to people? And you went out and decided to start a school in Kenya.
Yeah.
Now, this was done coinciding with your role with the Rock team.
Yes.
Correct?
Yep, that's correct. So, yeah.
We'll just park the Rock team for a second. Let's just go into, you started a school called Awanga.
Awangan, yeah.
Yeah, in Kenya, and for Maasai cattle herders.
Yeah.
Extraordinary. Just let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. The first place, and I went to Kenya. And I've always loved Africa. Watching National Geographic with Dad. The gods must be crazy.
Yeah.
Like, even though the gods must be crazy, that poor bloke getting hit in the head with a Coke bottle. And
that's a very good movie.
Yeah, it's a very good movie. For anyone who hasn't watched that movie, it's a ripper. And I applied for a few different countries, and I ended up getting a placement with, I forgot the name of the organisation I went through. Anyway, they placed me out originally at an orphanage, and I spent about a month at the orphanage. It was in a place called Kwarangari. So Kwarangari is next to Kibera, one of the biggest slums in Africa. 2 million people live there, and also the most dangerous place in Kenya, which I didn't know. And I got there, and I didn't realise this until I got there, and the lady's like, we have to lock up everything. 2 policemen were shot out the front of the gate like last week. I was like, oh my goodness, what have I got myself into?
Yeah.
And so, I did the orphanage thing, I fixed it all up, and I was like, oh God, I didn't bring my life savings across. I saved up money for a house, and I was like, no, I don't want to build a house. I want to do something different with it, something really good with this money. And so I put the word out to all the volunteers on this program, and I said, look, I'm a mining engineer. I want to build something. I love carpentry. If you hear of anything, just just let me know. And I got this phone call from a guy called Wilfred Lanana, who's a teacher out in Olmararoy, this place out in the Rift Valley. And he said, I've got this idea that there's men that herd cattle all day long, and they're also the ones that inherit the land, but they actually can't read or write. They haven't been to school. They don't get to school because they're herding cattle all day. So why don't we start a night school? I thought, okay, this sounds pretty interesting. And, mate, I remember that first day I went out there, and you can just imagine the Rift Valley. It's like the scene from The Lion King, really. It's just on the outskirts of what you'd call Greater Nairobi,
right,
to the west. And it's rolling hills, big cliffs, giraffes everywhere, zebra.
Stunning.
Just stunning. And the sun was setting and the sky was purple. And I went and had a look at this place, and I was like, this is what we're going to do. This is what I'm going to do. This is precisely where I'm meant to be in this moment. Everything that I've watched with Maasai, the guys wearing the red blankets jumping up and down, this is where I'm meant to be. And pretty much a week after, we poured a concrete slab.
And you built a classroom.
Yeah, classrooms. So we fixed up the whole school. Kenya being Kenya, there's not a lot of money to go around. So once a school's built, it just effectively starts to wear away from that point on. So, simple things like putting glass back in classrooms, putting new blackboards up there, fixing up the tables and chairs. And then we built a library. And then our classroom, which was the Awangan classroom, was built next to the library. Yeah.
And tell me, what were the outcomes?
Okay.
Of the school?
So the school started, and the first time we ran the school, so we turned on the lights for the night school. Some of these guys were walking 2.5 hours each way to come and learn. We designed this curriculum for them ourselves, and within a few weeks we had 40 men in the classroom, and someone had heard of it from Tanzania and had walked across from Tanzania to come to learn with us and stay with a family member.
Extraordinary.
Yeah, extraordinary. And one of the biggest realizations for me, and I remember this so clearly, because Josephat was just this incredible man. He had a young family, and I was teaching him how to write. You get the stencils and your writing.
Yeah.
And I went to leave, and he just grabbed my hand and he just said, teach me more. I want to learn more. But there's 40 other students in the room.
Yes.
And that's when I realized not just the importance of education, but just how we take it for granted. I mean, how hungry can you be to learn, just to read and write? And then a few weeks later, Josephat, he comes up with this big grin on his face and he says, oh, guess what? I was like, what? He's like, I can read the signs. He knows where he's going on the streets. Like, just
how rewarding.
the simplest thing.
Yeah.
And then we just we just fine-tuned that whole process. And within 2 years, Josephat finished the entire Kenyan curriculum, and suddenly we had Elizabeth Mbasu, who's the head of the Kenyan curriculum, sitting on our board trying to figure out how we did it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
It was interesting. We're sort of fast-tracking a little bit, but you recently stepped down as the president of the Western Australian School of Mines Alumni.
Yep.
And you made an announcement effectively, and it went through a little bit about your views on and what a privilege it was to have that role. One of the quotes I took out of it actually reflects back to this. And this is what you said. It related to that Awangan school in Kenya, and it provided you with delivering an insight into education for those Maasai people who were not fortunate enough to receive an education. This is the power of education, to transform lives, and the power of opportunity. Is this not the transformational opportunity that the WA School of Mines has also offered most of us? Education and the opportunity to have the best education in Kalgoorlie is at the heart of why the WA School of Mines Alumni exists. I thought that was pretty powerful, and the reason it all connected with me when I went back and looked at what you did with the Awangan school and how that has sort of played a role in your complete outlook on education and knowledge. Yep. Knowledge is no burden to carry, as they say.
Yeah.
But, that example is phenomenal.
Yeah. So give a man a fish or teach a man to fish, right?
That's right.
It really comes down to that.
Just moving on from there, you were there for around 5 months.
Yep, first time around 5 months.
And then you came back, and it was 2012 when you were back, and you started back with the rock team.
Yep.
You got a tap on the shoulder from Billy Beeman to ask if you would consider joining the WA School of Mines Alumni Council at that point. And it was a pivotal moment at that time when he asked.
Yeah.
You had a lot going on in terms of not only you've just come back from Kenya, you were getting into a new job, but it was also a pretty emotional time with your father.
Yeah.
Do you want to just talk a bit about this in terms of why that council role also had a pretty big role to play in your life?
Yeah, sure. So coming back, I guess, I came back from Kenya with this whole new lease on life, thinking you really appreciate what you've got. And I was like, oh man, the things I'm going to do for my mum and dad. And I came back and Billy sent me a message or a call, I can't remember. He's like, I'll come to the AGM. I want you to join my team. And I was like, okay, this sounds pretty interesting. Didn't know what it entailed or anything. And it's only in hindsight now you look back at those days and you see the people that were sitting around the table and recognise how blessed you were for that particular moment. Because about 6 months later, my dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And as you know, the pancreatic cancer, the silver bullet, there's no cure.
Yep.
And I just think like this, the love of that group of people, and you look at people differently when you get to sit on a volunteer board with them. You really get to know people. And when that group of people found out what was going on in my life, oh man, like I've never felt that much love. As men, right, you think, how there's a very misconstrued story around what masculinity looks like. And the way these men took me under their wing and supported me through that.
Yeah.
That was where I was like, this is where I'm meant to be. Once again, it's just like life just finds a way to make sure in the right place at the right time. And they just took me under their wing.
Yeah.
It would not let me fall.
And that was the start of an amazing period of time. You were on that council for 12 years. As I said earlier, you ultimately were chosen to be a president of that council. But you're also at the same time emerging again with your career with the rock team.
With rock team.
So just talk to a little bit about the rock team, and because this is really where you start to evolve and it starts on a pretty significant journey in your career.
Yeah, it does. So rock team, once again, with James Crozer, to have people like that in your life who not just know you as a professional but deeply care about you as a person, him and his wife Amanda both, was amazing. Like to then be put in charge of something. So my first job, he was like project manager. It was for an underground diamond drilling thing, which I've never done before. But he was like, you can do it. So I went and did that. Then he was like, okay, another job, rehabbing the Maggie Hayes nickel mine. You're going to go and do that. So, at such a young age, being charged to do something like that, but then also having someone to mentor you through it.
Yes.
Like James. And if you've ever met James, he is one of the smartest people you will ever meet in your life. Brilliant mining engineer. So he did those things, but then, we got the diagnosis of Dad. And so James is like, okay, we'll come back in the office and you'll do a bit of the consulting work that we're doing, not the contracting stuff, the consulting work. So I was doing mine design work, feasibility studies. You see the names of some of the things that I've worked on now and again come across the desk and you're like, you have a bit of a laugh. But that experience was very unique because not many mining engineers they won't do their time underground and get their first class ticket, or they'll go straight into consulting, but they'll never do enough of both.
Yes.
But because, like you mentioned, I went and did so much VAC work, and then I had all this different exposure working with the rock team, really sort of, you get this different experience, right, when you do different things. Suddenly I know what to look for in studies. What are the things that people are flexing? Where's the little lies in the detail of these feasibility studies that are going to catch our clients out? So that was really a really important piece of the puzzle for me ending up where I am now. It's not just knowing how to be a worker or an engineer, but also being a contractor. How a contractor's motivated, how to read a contract, how to manipulate a contract, how to make sure the contractor is doing what you want them to do. And then, how to effectively put a mine study together and then go and build a project. Yeah.
You spent a considerable period of time there, but ultimately, like mining you had to endure a cyclical downturn, right? Which is all part and parcel of the industry over a long period of time. You finished up with Rock Team and then ultimately managed to secure a contract with Goldfields.
Yes.
Which again was going to add to your repertoire of skills.
Yes.
You know, because you'd obviously spread your wings quite a bit, as you just alluded to. But here you started on a fixed term contract as a production engineer at the Athena and Hamlet. And then also you went on to be a drill and blast engineer and production engineer at the Granny Smith gold mine.
Yep.
So did that provide you a little bit more, you know, experience to further develop? Because I know you went on to then get your first class mine manager's certificate of competency and underground shift supervisor's certificate of competency, which both are not easy to get.
No, they're not. They're very difficult to get.
Yeah. So look, I've just wanted to put Goldfields in that mix.
Yeah.
And then come out with these two certifications. Sure. And how that, and I think also for people listening, you know, what that meant to you to get that.
Yeah, sure. So Goldfields was so I got made redundant. So it's good for young professionals to sort of learn that these boom times don't last. And when they do turn, it can get difficult. So I'd come back from Kenya, took my job back at Rock Team. But then in a downturn, no one's doing mining studies because there's no money. And, you know, they tried to keep me on as long as they could, but, you know, you got a business to run. And so I was made redundant. But then it was actually pretty hard to find work. When I say hard to find, within a month I found work. But that's pretty hard. In mining, it's normally just like out one company, in the other.
Yeah.
But once again, the network did its thing. Christian Price tapped me on the shoulder and pulled me out to St. Ives to work at the Athena Hamlet. And Paul Brennan, strangely enough, was the mining manager out there who's running Ballard. And I've actually tried twice before to pass my first class exam. They're very hard. Well, if it was hard for me, because once again, studying doesn't come naturally to me, and you've got to memorize the act and the regs, and they're big, thick books. And for someone who's I was studying my commerce degree at the time. I was working underground.
A lot of late nights.
And twice I failed, but I got it the third time. But the first class ticket and the shift boss certificate of competency, it's not just a piece of paper. It really is a demonstration that you've done your time. So for most mine managers, you have to do at least 1 year underground, and then I think it's 5 years in or about a mine. But for the shift boss ticket, you've got to do at least 2 years underground. And I was really determined that I wanted to spend that extra time underground to get that shift boss ticket to demonstrate to people that, I've done a little bit more than the others. Not because I wanted the piece of paper, but to demonstrate that I know the ins and out of an underground more than most.
Yes.
And you know what? It's hard. Working underground is damn hard. Really hard.
So just pause there. For those who've never worked underground, explain what it feels like.
I mean, the underground is unique, right? It's incredibly safe. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's no need to be scared when you're down there. But the risk, it doesn't take a lot to go wrong to hurt someone. And so the first thing I'd say about underground is that it's one of those very unique cultural environments where you rely on every single person to pull their weight.
Yeah.
For example, if someone doesn't put a little clip in a hose and it comes undone, you've got a high-pressure hose flying around. If a truck driver doesn't report that they've clipped a HV cable, well, that HV cable is touching steel, which is then, has the risk of electrifying someone else. Like it's such a unique environment.
It's very much a team environment.
It's a team environment, but humans aren't designed to survive a kilometre underground. So your air, your water, your power, your crib rooms, your emergency, your egress, your pumping, all these things have to be solved at depth. It's hot down there. As you get deeper, every 100 metres you go underground, it's one degree hotter. It gets more seismic. Around Kalgoorlie, 300 metres, starts to get seismic. Your rock's starting to talk to you, cracking, popping, spitting. You go east into the ultramafics, they're squeezing, the ground's starting to get smaller. The amount of stuff that happens in an underground mine is incredible, and it is still one of the safest industries to work in.
But that reflects so well on the capabilities of the Western Australian mining community to be able to do that structure and the safety that runs with it.
It is. It's an incredible industry.
World class.
It is world class. It is world class. And that's why those tickets are so hard to get, and they're rare as hen's teeth.
When you look back at that, was it a pivotal moment in your journey or in your career to achieve that and to say, well, box ticked in a way?
Yep. I think you always aspire to be something or be someone And as a young mining engineer, well, getting that first class ticket is what you're after. And my first boss as a graduate, Liz Jones, just amazing mining engineer. I mean, running Ramelius's Mount Magnet site now, one of the lowest cost gold producers they are the lowest cost gold producer in Australia. And I got to learn off someone like that. And I always thought, I want to be as good as she is as a mine manager. And she used to have her certificate hanging up on the wall in her office. And I wanted that.
Yeah.
And I got it.
Oh, you can tell just looking at your body language that you're pretty proud of that. And it's awesome. Well done. And the more you dig into this, the more you understand what it means. And I think that just then provided you with such a solid foundation to then move on, which is what you did, and joined Saracen, which is a journey of all proportions for you.
Yeah.
Just before we go into Saracen, I just wanted to highlight that you hadn't lost sight of these sort of side gigs, so to speak. We did talk about the school, and which is just beautiful, But then you went out and put yourself out there and started Charlie's Shack in Lombok, which is a surf house with a difference.
Yeah,
what a classic.
Yeah,
he did this for 5 years.
Yeah, I was flying in and out off Lombok for 5 years.
So
building and running that.
You obviously loved your surfing. Right.
Yeah.
And just a little bit of a side step here.
Yeah.
How you've come from India, you've landed and you're living in Murdoch. You don't probably see the beach a lot.
Yeah.
You then go to Kalgoorlie and yet surfing's your number one sport to the point where you want to go and start your own surf retreat.
I'm the worst Indian ever. I don't like the cricket. I didn't marry an Indian girl and I didn't become a doctor. There you go. No, so the surfing thing actually goes back to when Dad was sick and I was consulting in the Perth office, and this guy named Gary Dick. Gary works for Caspian now as the exploration manager, and Gary, he was deeply affected by the news that my dad was sick, and he was like, he could see me every day going to the hospital in the morning, seeing Dad, then coming back to the office doing my consulting work, then going back to the hospital, and he was like, you know what, I've got an idea, let's go surfing. Middle of winter, freezing cold, and I thought, well, screw it. And so he takes me out surfing. I think we went to Trig the first time.
Yeah.
And it's the first time fishing was the thing that I did with my dad, but every time I went fishing, it didn't turn my mind off. It was just reminded me of him not being there. So jumping into cold water, paddling out, scared shitless about sharks. And so the last thing you're thinking about is what's happening in other areas of your life. And that's what got me into surfing. Yeah. He used to do that with me at least 2 or 3 times a week just to take my mind off what was going on. So to Gary, you talk about these sliding door moments where you get to meet people that change the outcome of your life.
Yeah.
Gary's one of them. And after Dad passed away, Gary was like, well, you're starting to find your feet now. You should really go out to Indonesia and learn. So he said, go to a place called Lombok, which I've never heard of. Go to a village called Grupuk and surf a wave called Dondons. And that was it. Fell in love with the place.
So much so that you started your own surf house.
Yeah.
Tell us, you got there and you obviously fell in love with it. And as anyone would who loves their surfing, but you decided to take it a step further. You did this for 5 years. Clearly you started your role with Saracen. Let's go back to Saracen and then tie the two in. But
yeah, sure.
So you ended up with Saracen, where after working across the WA goldfields through cycles, you ended up spending some 6 years with Saracen. Now, we all know that is a phenomenal story. Raleigh Finlayson led.
Mm-hmm.
How did it unfold?
So when I went out for the site visit, so Raleigh was pretty strategic about the people he hired. The company was about to turn on Karari, so that Red October was winding down, which was this narrow vein mine. And
we're talking about 2015.
Yeah. 2015. I think the company market cap was like $100 million or $150 million or something like that. And I went out to site with actually one of my previous colleagues from Goldfields, who was the mine manager at the time, Drew Bradshaw. And Drew was like, come and work for me. Let's do what we've always talked about and build a company that people, and a mine site that people really want to love coming to. And Desco was there as well, talking about incredible mining engineers, Desco. And we did exactly that. And so the three of us effectively, there was only 6 months life on the asset. As the company was drilling out, they found more. And, we went from being three of us in that little office to, by the time we ramped up Karari and Dervish, to 45 technical people in the office.
What's the glue with the Saracen story from your perspective? And like the likes of Ral and Morgan Ball, common denominators within what they seem to be able to do was create a culture, which I know you absolutely loved and thrived in. And that was a really important part of what you were seeking to get out of life. Just describe that, because it was such a pivotal part of your life.
Saracen was ultimately you stayed at a company for, I think, 6 or 7 years I was there. There was a very good reason for that. And I think it's led from the top. Rally leads from the front. And that management team is very unique. Values driven. So culturally, if you didn't know the values of the company, you wouldn't get a promotion. It's stuck on every wall. Everyone knows it, right? So I've written it down here: safety, delivery, courage, communication, attitude. And we always used to say you can't teach attitude. And so we always hired for attitude. So people would come to Saracen and they were completely overlooked before, but then you teach them, right? You can teach the technical stuff. That's the easy part, but you can't change someone's attitude. So from the get-go, we had this culture of let's give everyone an opportunity that never had it. So it was easy to get them and then train them up. And that's exactly what we did. And by the time I finished up there, we had 19 nationalities working just in the technical services team. And so, people talk about diversity. I mean, this was the United Nations. People used to call Karasudam the United Nations. And it worked well because everyone had different ideas.
Yes.
Right? Really different ideas. And of course, managing across cultures is difficult. It's not easy, but it worked really well. Really well.
And they had a common theme. And that, not just the values, but what were the aspirations? Exactly right.
There was a growth mindset.
Yes.
So everyone's a shareholder, for one. You're remunerated like the directors. Effectively, the same KPIs that Rally had were the same KPIs that some of the high-performing graduates had, right? So not only was this a good way to recruit and attract people and retain them, but it was fully aligning people with shareholders, which was very, very unique at the time.
Yes.
And I think what Rally did really well as well is that when Rally comes to site, he's got this freakish memory, right? He remembers everyone's name. And I was like, he'd just walk up to some operator and be like, "Oh, mate, how you doing?" Say his name or her name and then talk about the conversation they had the last time they met 9 months ago,
right,
6 months ago, whenever he was up on site. And when you're speaking to Rally, and this is one of the most unique traits of Ral, you're the only person in the entire world. When you are talking to Rally Finlayson, you've got his attention in that moment. And that is a very, very, very rare skill.
You feel valued.
You feel valued. And Ral's he's just happy-go-lucky, right? And he does this thing. I'm going to note for people who haven't worked with Ral before, he's got the 5 questions and he'll ask every single person the same 5 questions to see if there's alignment in the team. And if someone answers differently, he'll scratch. And that's how he gets to the bottom of problems, right? Just an incredible leader, very unique in the way he approaches things, but just brings so much authenticity. And that just flowed down from the top, right? Open door policy. I got a problem, Ral, walking to his office, right? I got a problem. I think this needs to be dealt with quickly. Amazing.
And coming back to attitude, you can tell by your body language and the way you're describing it is that it was a contagious thing.
It is.
It went across the workforce and was able to bring the group together across the different opportunity sets and create momentum. Obviously, it created commercial momentum in terms of the growth of the company to a multiple billion-dollar market cap, but the staff were able to participate in that.
Exactly right. And when you're dealing with people like, the entire management team at Saracen had their hands dirty, as in, they'd worked on mines, or run mines before. So when you go and brought a problem to someone, chances are they actually knew how to solve it. And I think that brings a lot of respect, right? Because I want to know that the person above me has my back and knows how to solve problems in the worst of times. Even if you look at Troy Irvine, who's the head of business development in IR, Troy was the underground manager at Darlow, and he's doing IR now.
Yes.
A guy that's very well capable of running any mining company anywhere in the world if he wanted to, but he's doing this role and he's supporting Raoul to do it. But across the full corporate team that we had there at Saracen, Simon Jessup, my goodness, absolute weapon of a mining engineer as the COO, working with Raoul. And then Morgs, Morgan, I can't remember the mining company. He was the MD of an iron ore company before he joined us. And I was just blown away the first time I met him. He was joined as a CFO, and I was like, my goodness, the knowledge of this guy when it comes to mining. But that was the team at Saracen. And I think that the really defining moment for me, it was just before I left, was COVID, is when that entire team did the same rosters as we did on sites. So they didn't sit pretty in the corporate office. Every single one of them, including Marion Drevniks, our head of people and culture, were out on site doing 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off with us. And that for me summarizes, I guess, quintessentially what that company was about. People, people, people.
Well, it was a meteoric rise, and thanks for giving us that insights. Obviously, we've had Ral on the show, and it's a fantastic story, and he describes it very well. Saracen always will hold a special part of your life.
Yep.
You got to the point where at 6 years or thereabouts, there was the merger that took part with Northern Star, which was the bringing together of Bill and Ral together to be, what a force.
Yeah.
And, that famous acquisition of the Super Pit.
Yeah.
You were there at Saracen at the time.
Yeah.
How did that feel when, word got out that, holy cow, everyone, we've actually just bought 50% of the Super Pit. Ral's coming back. We've got to raise the dough.
No, being out on site, I remember when that was announced, and it was just like, what the? It just took us all by surprise, really. But it's also, remember, because we all studied in Kalgoorlie, it was like, wow, we're gonna own that thing. Like we could own the thing that we spent 4 years studying next to. So really surreal. And obviously, you listen to the podcast with Ral, and he's told us that story so many times on site, and just the whole story behind that acquisition is amazing. And then Billy coming in and taking the other half, and you got these two blokes, and I know those guys before they were famous, and it's just amazing. It's just an amazing story.
It is one out of the box.
Yeah, and people see companies grow, but they don't recognise how hard it is to grow. Like those two would be the hardest working people in their respective companies, and not just working hard because they're doing the corporate stuff, but they also do the emotional stuff really well. Right?
Yeah.
The people side, the coming down to the level of the lowest person on a mine site and having a conversation with the cleaner and making them feel special. It's full circle from the bottom to the top. That what those two achieved is incredible.
Yes, stand out, incredible. And you were part of that, and obviously that merger to bring the Super Pit back under Australian ownership.
Yeah.
Look, it's almost a fairy tale story, but a lot of commercial nous and a lot of money and a lot of hard work and effort got to that point. You being part of that with Saracen had an opportunity to make some decisions.
Yeah.
Right. And I think for the listeners is like taking a step back, getting in a helicopter and thinking, where is Kyle De Souza at the moment in his career and in his life, and how you're feeling?
Yeah.
How were you at this point?
No, when we announced the merger with Northern Star and Saracen, we'd taken, me personally, so it was like, okay, ramp up Karari, then put a pace plan in, then ramp up Whirling Dervish, then go and start up Deep South. And that was at the same time, obviously, building my place in Indonesia on brakes. But that period was so intense, and you're training people up at the same time. Right? So you're not just trying to build a mine, you're trying to build people. And that team grew so quickly, and it was so stressful in the end. Ral ended up sending me on a leadership course with Brett Cunningham, who runs the Mining Leaders Group out of Brizzy. And Now, you do all these things as leaders which you take for granted, but we had this conversation. I was like, I'm feeling really stuck. I don't know what I want to do next. I've always had aspirations to be like Bill and Raoul.
Just to pause there, at that time, you were vice chair of a shadow board within Saracen, reporting to the company executive.
Yeah.
You'd been down there for a couple of years. So clearly they had you in line for a succession plan.
So they created that as a way of, I guess, retaining people. Is okay, how do we retain the high performers? Well, let's put them in the shadow board where they get to see what we do as executives, and they can help us, being a few years older than us, decide and make decisions so that the younger members of the team were also considered. And that was the beauty of that shadow board, is to make sure that the decisions of the company were relevant to the next generation coming through as well. But it also kept us there.
And so that conversation with Raoul enabled you to sort of say, well, look, this is what I'm thinking. Well,
it's funny, right? Most people, and Raoul and I joke about this all the time, it's because with most bosses, you would never tell them that you're leaving, right? You just hand in your resignation and off you go. But Raleigh was just so open book. He cared so much, and he always said to me, if you ever think about leaving, you come and tell me first.
Yep.
And so I had this opportunity with my coach at the time, and he said, you've got this hole in your career, in your CV. If you want to become an ND, well, then you have to get this finance side down pat, and maybe, you should consider becoming an analyst. And it was just by chance that I met Tim Bunny at a wedding, which was down in Margaret River. So one of my friends, Charlotte, who was in Kenya with me, was marrying one of my best mates, Daryl. And Tim Bunny was at the wedding, and I met him surfing before the wedding. And that is just coincidence how I landed in this job. And he said, come and work for me. It sounds like you'd be a perfect fit. And I went and told Raoul, and I was like, what do you think? Is this a good idea? And he said, mate, that is a ripping opportunity. If you get an opportunity to go and work with those guys at Euroz Hartleys, go for it.
So you had his endorsement?
Had his endorsement, had Swerve's endorsement, Troy Irvine's endorsement as well. And that was the difference, right? Like always acting in the best interest of your people.
So let's just take a step back from that, right? You were clearly doing well. You had a career pathway. You were doing well financially, and you decided to sidestep and get that next layer of knowledge.
Yeah.
In essence, coming back to education, coming back to finding that piece of the puzzle that needed to complete the jigsaw.
Yeah.
You could see why, apart from the coach, your coach saying you need that financial analysis piece, were you driven by the markets? Did you have a passion for the markets? Did you? And I know Tim Bunny is a fantastic bloke.
Yeah.
And he's very persuasive.
Yeah.
But coming back to you, what did you love about the markets? Did you, to jump into this next role?
Well, as a shareholder, right, with Saracen, you're motivated, you understand the share market, you're leveraged to it. And so it's always been something that I've been interested in.
Yeah.
And then Tim Bunny being probably the best stockbroker you'll ever meet, broke the company to me and convinced me to join. But I think it was just when we merged with Northern Star, everyone walked away with a pretty handsome package.
Yes.
Because all your long-term incentives vested. And it was just seemed like the right time to consider a change. Mining can be monotonous, and if you don't move, and this is part of the network with WASM, right, and the alumni, it's like if you stay in a role for too long, you can end up stuck on that track. And it was a monster pay cut to come across, right?
Yes.
A monster pay cut. And I remember having this conversation with Chris Davidson, who's the COO of Mika now, MEK, and Chris was like, Kyle, if there is value in the job, not monetary value, but learning, you can learn from something, then just do it. And I think that was like one of the big conversations that I had, which really swung me into this direction. I said, you know what? I get to be home every night. Like, beautiful wife at home. Like, we're going to, trying for a family, all those things that start to creep into your mind as a 20-something-year-old on how your life's going to look like. Am I going to be a present dad? Can I be there for my elderly family? Am I going to be stuck out here on site forever? Really tough decisions that have to be made sort of very early on.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cultural fit was there for me, and then having the blessing of the people that I loved and trusted and saying, yeah, that's a good company to go work for. Well, the money wasn't an issue, really. It was just, am I going to learn here? Am I going to love working with these people?
Yes.
And that's one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Well, you've done very well, and it's been quite a period of time now. And, when we're talking now about 4 years.
Yeah, 4.5 years.
4.5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Kyle, in your day-to-day role, let's just talk about what are the criteria or the key criteria you look at when you analyse a company that's listed on the ASX. Now, that could be in any particular business, but let's say, for example, we'll talk about a mining company in this case, because you are, as I said earlier, a leading resources analyst.
People, you always start with people, because good people will make money from an asset if the asset's good enough, but it always starts with people, because people will breed good culture. They'll attract talent. They're driven. They're honest. They've got integrity. So we always start with people. And the perfect example of this is probably Simon Lawson. I've known Simon for years, and when I saw the drill hits that he was getting at Spartan, I was like, oh my goodness, these results are incredible. But no one wanted to invest in the company because it had blown up twice before he was the MD. So
Yes.
Everyone was skeptical. But I remember we went so hard at that stock because I knew how Simon and Nick Jolly worked. And if they're saying it's good and it's real, it's good and it's real. And so people, if you know people, they're always going to work hard for you and they're always going to be honest with you. But then good people attract good people. Who joins them next? Craig Jones. And that's when I thought this is special. If you've got someone like that joining, and the company ends up going from 12 cents when we first started talking about it to being sold for $2.40 to Ramelius.
Oh, shout out to Simon.
To Simo, yeah. So people first. And then the other side would be, what am I looking at? Like, the numbers are important, but that's not my strength, looking at crunching the numbers. It's okay, what does this ore body look like? Is it consistent? Where are they mining? Is the drilling sufficient? Have I seen the core and been out to site? No. Is it getting seismic at depth? Can I see that in the core? Do the systems and processes match the scale of the company? Because as company grow, their systems have to change. Do the technical people on site really understand what's going on? Do they know the bottlenecks? What are their core values? Do they have them stuck all over the wall? Is it a neat and tidy site? Trying to pick out the subtle nuances of what's going to make a company a success and what's not. Safety, a big one. So there are so many things that we're looking for in a company. And then lastly, I think, no decision that we make at Euroz Hartleys is done alone, and that's the power of this team. So I sit next to Mike Milliken, who is one of the best analysts in the sector, has been doing it for 16. He celebrated the 16th year with Euroz Hartleys yesterday, and nothing gets past him. He's a geologist, knows everyone, knows all the assets, has seen them before, because most of these things are old assets that come back again. Then you got Michael Scantlebury, absolute weapon of a geologist as well. So nothing passes, not just me looking at it. Euroz Hartleys is very unique because we're a team. So that research team, like a bunch of propeller heads really, we love mining, but we also like making clients lots of money, and we don't like them losing money. And so we'll call it a spade, which, looking at the people, looking at the asset, looking at the geology, going out to site visits, getting our hands dirty, and making sure that we've ticked every box to make sure people's capital is protected. I guess that's what we love doing, and having that technical experience. If I don't have it, if I can't answer a question, I've got 10 GMs who can on WhatsApp that I studied with at the School of Mines.
Yeah.
Who will tell me.
Oh, great insight. Great insight. And that must give you a buzz.
It does.
Your day-to-day, when you get up in the morning,
yeah,
you're driven.
Yeah, driven, because the job is quite unique because you never know when the news is coming.
Yes.
And this is bang. Stock releases news. You got to process that news in 15, 20 minutes, and then disseminate that information to your institutional clients and your retail clients as quickly as possible to then make a trade.
How have you gone with regards to your global views and macro views on commodities such as gold, for example, which has had a meteoric rise?
Yep.
A challenging period of time across on the political landscape. How do you go with that in terms of your role?
So doing this stuff in Kenya, you realise what political risk looks like. You get a taste for Africa. TIA, this is Africa. Things just turn to shit real fast. And then, going to Indonesia, where you operate different legal system, different language, close to Australia, but still vastly different. New Zealand, once again, completely different landscape to how we do things here. So when it comes to the macro, I'm never just thinking about Australia. I'm looking at the news and it's meaningful. When I see stuff happen in Africa, it makes sense to me what's actually happening. I know the resources to look at. I'm looking at currency conversion.
Yes.
I'm looking at what the currency is doing. I'm looking at what different indexes affect that particular country, how it could affect us.
Yes.
There's a macro view there that comes with this role. And I think having that lived experience, working in different countries,
really helps.
Definitely helps, yeah.
When you look back at your life in terms of where you're up to now, I just wanted to highlight in August 2015, it was Diggers and Dealers.
Yeah.
and that's where you did meet your lovely wife, Jamie Lee. And that was a pretty special time. I mean, really, that was through the Saracen era that you guys got to know each other. You're now a dad.
Yep.
I know that's a hugely important part of your life, obviously. Tell us a little bit about where you're at now.
Well, I mean, the biggest decision you'll ever make in your life is your partner. And especially in this industry. And one of the things that my mum and dad always said is find someone who understands the nature of your job. Because if you don't, we're traveling a lot, it's hard, we're under stress, that just doesn't work. And so Jamie Lee was just she's an amazing woman, like absolutely love her to bits. And now we've got a little daughter, Maddie, she's 2.5 years old. She gets what this job is about. She understands the nature of it, understands my aspirations, and that's really important. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Fantastic. And you still get it out in the waves?
Unfortunately not, because I haven't been able to get out to Indonesia. So I'm
all right. You don't surf in Perth?
Don't surf in Perth. I'm not getting in Perth. The water's too cold. I'll go surf in Margie's on a sunny day where I can see the 100 metres away, but I'm not surfing in Perth.
Well, look, Kyle, that's not a bad place to maybe just draw it to a close. But look, as a colleague, but also, I suppose with Finding the Front, we get to have a bit of a deeper chat and understand what makes you who you are and how you've been able to achieve what you've achieved. And look, I just take a step back, and my observations are that you're a guy who wears his heart on his sleeve, and there's been numerous examples of that through our connection, and I know that the people that you know well would say the same. I found it very rewarding for you that you were appointed president of the Western Australian School of Mines Alumni, and I know it meant a huge amount to you in your profession to be acknowledged by your peers to take that role on. And from everything I've read and from everything you've just explained, you did a wonderful job, and I think it's a legacy you should be proud of. The interesting thing about the WA School of Mines alumni is we've had a number of them on the podcast, and they've all spoken so highly of it, and the list is almost too long to go through.
Yeah.
But you're part of that, and I think, you wear that badge with pride. You've given an immense amount to other people, and that's something it's evident with what you did in Kenya, but it's also evident in your day-to-day role and what you look to do as part of your job and part of your life is to make sure you keep giving back. And it's become really evident. And I think so, mate, on behalf of all of us at Euroz Hartleys, thanks very much for joining us. It's been a great chat, and onwards and upwards.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having us, mate. And yeah, keep doing what you're doing. And look, for anyone who's thinking about getting into this line of work, reach out. Anyone who's struggling with whatever's going on a mine site, and always happy to chat.
Good on you. Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to Euroz Hartleys Finding the Front. This podcast is for general information purposes only. Please check out eurozhartleys.com for more information. Euroz Hartleys holds Australian Financial Services Licence 230052.